Well, happy Friday, everyone. This is Gene from CommerceBlend. And before we get started today, we will be sharing a recording of today's session after the call. So if you have any questions that arise during the session, you may notice a Q&A tab down at the bottom of your Zoom console, your RingCentral console. Feel free to pop any questions in there during the course of the session. And if there's time at the end, we'll address those. For those, so let me share my screen so we can dive right into it. And for those of you who are not already familiar, CommerceBlend is a community of merchants and thought leaders in the e-commerce world that are designed to give you a competitive advantage in growing your business. And when you think of it, that our ecosystem now, all of those of us that are in the e-commerce world, there's a lot of competition and a lot of options and constant evolution, new widgets, new services, trying to understand what's going to be the best technology stack for your business among the 8,000 plus businesses that are out there. What we do at CommerceBlend is do some research on our side and try to connect you to the companies that we think will give you the greatest impact towards your business once you're educated in their services. So we're actually very happy today to have Rob Holthouse here from Subscribe Pro. And Rob will be addressing how subscription services can help to bolster your revenue in 2020. Subscribe Pro is a platform that provides a very thorough interface for your customer service to manage auto ship and auto replenishment programs and a whole lot more. So on that note, I am going to pass over the baton to Rob.
Thanks, Gene. I appreciate that. Let me share my screen here with everybody. So yeah, the focus of today's talk is going to be kind of on how subscription programs can benefit your revenue, but I think that it kind of goes even really beyond your revenue. Obviously, that's a nice thing to have, but I also want to spend a little time today talking about how subscription programs sort of change the dynamic between e-commerce merchants and their customers, because that I think is really fascinating. We've seen firsthand how a good and well implemented subscription program can really affect a company's revenue, how that can really help a company grow. But more importantly, it also, kind of has a long-term benefit as well of, providing a valuable service for customers, of, changing the dynamic of interaction between a customer and a company, and really lets merchants kind of stay in a much more regular contact with their customers that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So I think that there's a ton of benefits beyond just the financial benefits of implementing a subscription program. And that's what I want to talk a little bit about today. But kind of just to get going here, take a little bit about who Subscribe Pro is. So we've been around for, at this point, going on 7 years, kind of evolved out of an e-commerce SI or a development agency that our founder had previously founded, and wanted to tackle kind of a bigger problem, which is, implementing a subscription program is actually incredibly difficult to do. So he decided that there was a better way of doing that, and wanted to set about kind of focusing not only on developing websites, but specifically on like how to build a subscription program. Like Gene said at the beginning, obviously there are a ton of revenue benefits to subscriptions, but they also really, really help to cement those relationships with your customers. Nowadays a customer has so many different places that they can go and make a purchase, and so many of them, the first click is Amazon, right? I think that that's the first search of greater than 50% of e-commerce traffic now is like looking for something on Amazon. Obviously, Amazon has a subscription program that customers are able to use if they choose. So if you're interested in selling direct to consumer, if that's a goal, then you really need to consider offering a subscription program if your products are replenishable products. And the reason that you want to do that is, if I run out of coffee, for example, I'm a big coffee drinker, and if I run out of coffee, then I might go anywhere to buy that, right? I might stop at Target on the drive home, or the local organic grocery store, which is where the coffee that I like to get is. I might go there, but if you can keep that customer from running out of the product, then you can keep them from going anywhere else to get it. So a replenishment program really cements that relationship with your customer simply by saying, hey, we know that this is something that you use a lot. Why have to deal with the trouble of running out of it and then having to go get it somewhere else? So that's a really big one. Having said that, a customer that is a subscribing customer has a lifetime value that is significantly higher than a non-subscribing customer. A lot of that is based kind of on what the product category is. But in some of the product categories that we see, the most success with, we can show lifetime value of a subscriber that is 20 times higher than a non-subscriber. That reduces marketing spend per customer to get that person to come back and make another purchase. And most importantly, I think most attractive to a lot of people is that's reliable revenue, right? That's something that every month you maintain a roughly, consistent or hopefully growing subscriber base. That's revenue that you can count on month over month for your business, which is great. As I said before, there's a lot of loyalty that plays into that. If a customer isn't running out of the product with you, then they have no reason to go and get it anywhere else or to try a new product from a competitor. Overall, again, the experience itself is better for the customer, right? So there's a ton of upside for merchants to sell subscriptions, but from a customer's point of view, it just makes life easier, right? I subscribe to the food that I feed my dog. And the reason that I do that is because dog food is heavy, and it's a pain to get it, from the store in bulk and then get it from my car back into my house. It also means that, I don't have any situations where it's, first thing in the morning and I'm getting ready to go to work and realize that I don't have enough food to feed my dog that morning. And then I have to run out to the store and be late, right? So the experience from, a customer's point of view is just like, hey, this is super convenient. This is a product that I know that I need and I'm not going to run out of it. And then finally on here, internal processes a lot of times become more efficient. And what I mean by that is we do work with folks who had maybe tried a replenishment program themselves, but they were managing it in-house, sometimes as scarily as like within an Excel spreadsheet to manually put them through. So as much as possible, especially as your business is scaling, the more things that you can automate, the better. And I always like to say to people that the subscription business is like, we're kind of really more than anything in the automation business, right? Where as much as possible, we want things to happen automatically, both for merchant and for customer. And the more that we can do that, the more efficiently the business runs and kind of everyone has a better experience. So I want to take just a minute. I know that we're not going to be for everybody, but I do want to chat up kind of Subscribe Pro and what we do. So we are very, very easy to implement. You don't really have to do a whole lot of customization. You can if you want to. We've certainly got clients that we work with that have some pretty crazy, custom experiences that we've worked with them to build. We provide that subscription program that increases customer value. Customers have a great experience because we provide a My Subscriptions page on the website that lets customers manage their own subscriptions themselves. We've got a really robust back-end merchant app that merchants themselves can kind of manage subscription programs. So now I want to chat kind of at a high level about what it's like to try to implement a subscription program. And Gene and I have kind of had conversations around this in the past. The reason that Subscribe Pro exists and that other companies like Subscribe Pro, our competitors, exist is because doing it yourself is expensive and it's time consuming. And it's really difficult to account for all of the little things that provide for a good customer experience. So if you're at a point with your business where subscriptions are something that you really want to do, but you're not quite sure how to do that, or maybe you have a subscription program, but it's not running the way that you want to do it, I would recommend kind of chatting with an SI or reaching out, if not to us at Subscribe Pro, to someone on who works with the platform that you might be on, to evaluate how to implement one. Because in our experience, and we have folks we work with that have tried to implement it themselves, it is a ton of time and effort And even then, there are lots of little things that you run into that affect the customer experience. And it's really important when you're implementing a subscription program that you get the customer experience right. Your subscribers are the people who, in point of fact, are your best customers. They're the people that have put their hands up and said, I want you to send me product on a regular basis. I'm going to enter my payment information and tell you where to ship that product, and I want you to just send it to me. So it's really important that the subscribing customers have the best possible customer experience. So you really don't want to half-heartedly kind of cobble together a subscription program. You want it to be something that's attractive, that's easy to use, and that inspires confidence from people who are going to give you their payment information and their shipping information and trust you to store that so that you can send them product regularly. Just as we've seen in the past, if you build it into the back of your website, you got to be careful that a subscription program doesn't make changes to other parts of your website that you may or may not want to change. So what you should be looking for when you implement a subscription program, and this isn't just for Subscribe Pro, but again, any of our competitors that may work on the platform that your site is on, you want to look for something that's relatively straightforward to implement, and it should be hopefully pain-free to implement. If you have existing subscribers, or if you're storing payment methods, it should be easy to migrate those into your new program. It should be seamless for customers. If you're not doing any really heavy lifting in terms of the customization or the user journey that you're trying to build, it shouldn't take very long to implement. And that's something to look for, as you're working with a subscription solution, is like, okay, what's our implementation time look like? What's needed on our part to implement that? We've got a number of different verticals that I can kind of share with you in just a little bit. Apparently I'm going backwards here. And the other thing to look for is whether or not the partner that you work with to do your subscriptions has any kind of knowledge in the industry, particularly within your product category, and particularly with any development agencies that you may work with or may be considering. So it's especially useful, and we've been lucky to work with some really great partners, especially useful to have a subscription solution that is relatively well known, or if the subscription solution is one that's been implemented by your SI before, that's even better. So if you're already working with a development agency, that's always a good place to start. Is, hey, we want to implement a recurring shipment program on our website. How do we go about doing that? It's often best to start with your SI if you're working with one, because they may already know some folks. They may have had expertise doing something like that in the past, and so they can be a really great resource in terms of recommending one in the future. Want to take just a minute here and see if anybody has any questions that I could address before we kind of move on with the presentation. And I don't know if I can see those, so if we get any come in, Gene, would you let me know?
Absolutely. I will kind of collect questions and run through them at the end for sure.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, perfect. Then let's chat a little bit about kind of our experience with subscriptions and what Subscribe Pro, knows to be a good vertical. I'm just going to kind of pull up a couple of current clients here and some folks that we know to be good products for subscription. If you are a brand selling your own product, you're probably going to have a good experience with subscriptions. Not to say that retailers can't, but brands directly selling their own products tend to benefit from subscriptions the most. If you are in a product category that regularly needs to be replenished, it seems kind of silly, but that also is a good indicator of subscriptions. If you and I'll tell you what, I'll list off a couple of verticals. If you sell things like nutritional supplements or coffee and tea, or pet supplies and food, or skincare, probably a good vertical for replenishment. And I'll take a minute here just to kind of show off a couple of clients that we work with currently. that have been with us for quite a while now, and kind of how they've managed to implement subscriptions and kind of what that looks like on a live website. So you've got some here. BrainMD Health has been a client of ours for quite some time. And you've got the option for one-time purchase automatically selected. But if you'd like, hey, subscribe and save 15%. As a best practice, if you're considering implementing a subscription program, you really want to include like a pop-up that has like an FAQ with how the program works. And you can see here, they even highlight outside of the FAQ, cancel anytime. There's a ton of subscription programs on the market right now, and they're super varied, right? Most of us, I would imagine, have a subscription to Netflix, and a lot of us probably have items on Amazon or Chewy for pet food that we regularly subscribe to. So customers themselves are not strangers to subscription programs. So your proposition to a customer shouldn't be, hey, subscriptions add a ton of value. For the most part, customers already know that subscriptions add a ton of value through, convenience or, a discount of some kind, or maybe you offer free shipping. Customers already know that. What's going to convert a customer from, someone who's just a customer to a subscriber is the quality of the subscription program itself. So, if I'm coming to a website and I see the option to subscribe, I might see like, hey, that might be worth it, but I'm leery about what's involved in that. So, probably the best and most useful best practice that I can share from our experience is you want to overcome any objections that a customer might have at the point that they arise. So in this case, you can see there's like a little, hey, what is this? A little bit of a backstory on how it works. And then, even if you don't click on that little info button there, you can see right here in super visible letters, cancel anytime. So that might take a customer who's interested from just a customer who's interested to, yeah, why not? I'll add this to my cart. And that's an incredibly valuable thing to add. Just to kind of give you an idea, we'll go with another client here. These guys have been with us for a very long time, grew their business enough that they were purchased by Kellogg's, and we are lucky enough to continue to be able to provide their subscription program. So you've got here kind of it blends into the site really well, the option for one-time purchase or for subscription. And then again, here's how it works. And if you want to learn more, that'll take you to a landing page with a bunch more information on it. And here's how you can select your delivery frequency. In terms of delivery frequency, always a good idea to kind of base that on the product. How many are in a box? Consult with your customers on that, on how often they'd like to purchase it, and take that feedback from your customers pretty seriously. So I'll take just a moment here to kind of walk through sort of how the user experience, at least with Subscribe Pro, works. And like I said, as I try to keep this platform and subscription program agnostic, I'll say that it's probably similar for a lot of our competitors, with maybe some minor differences. So a good user experience here would be to go to a product details page, have in this case the option for one-time delivery or the option for regular delivery. And you should be able to, with any solution that you work with, title this however you'd like. So we've got it set up currently as renewal period, but you might want it to say regular delivery, or subscribe and save is oftentimes the language that folks are familiar with. If you're offering a discount, you might want to call it that. And then in terms of the delivery frequency, we've got a few that are kind of common out of the box options here that folks use. And these, at least on our platform, are totally customizable. So we've got folks in Great Britain and Australia that prefer fortnightly over every other week. As you can tell with RX Bar, they had 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. So let's just add that to the cart. And then if I go and have a look at the cart here, you can also see the subscription widget. The subscription widget is in the cart. So you don't want to make a customer delete this and go back and sign up for it again if they decide in the cart that they'd rather have it on one-time delivery, or if they initially had one-time delivery and they decided that they want to have it on subscription. You should just have this in the cart and let them choose if they want to change their delivery frequency. Another thing that you should be on the lookout for whenever possible is it's a best practice, and I say best practice, but I would argue that it's pretty much critical at this point in the game. You don't want to silo customers into separate checkouts. So if you have a website where some of your products might be one-time orders and some of your products might be available on recurring delivery, it's really, really important that you don't make a customer check out with that regular purchase and that subscription purchase, or the non-subscription purchase rather, separately. That would be like, going to the grocery store and being like, oh, well, you can purchase cereal at this register, but if you wanted to get your fruit, you'd have to purchase that at, a register 2 aisles down. You really don't want to do that. You want to make sure that they can check out with a blended cart. That's another best practice that I try to really drive home with folks. So you can see here, you've got a recurring order and just a one-off order. And I'm just going to go through the checkout workflow. Typically, you will have to have a customer sign in. That wouldn't interfere with guest checkout on non-subscription orders, but for recurring orders, you really want to have that customer's account on your site so that they could come in and manage their own account there. This is, I should point out, a Magento 2 demo. Magento is one of the platforms that SubscribePro supports, but I've seen on other platforms, even platforms that we don't work with, the workflow should be roughly the same in terms of user experience. This is kind of what customers expect. So if you're on, Shopify or WooCommerce or BigCommerce or Salesforce Commerce Cloud, you'd want to have kind of a similar experience. So just going to select the shipping. You would need to have a card stored either on the website, or sometimes a subscription provider like us has a vault that can store those payment methods to use with recurring orders. And you do want to make sure that the vault that you're working with is PCI compliant, super important. And I'm just going to go ahead and place that order. Ooh, that's fun. Let's try a different card. All right. Well, let's just go back and kind of have a look at what an account would look like. So if we go to the account dashboard here, one of the benefits of SubscribePro is that we do use the cart on the website itself to place those recurring orders. So for our system, essentially the way that it works is we store those recurring orders and place them via an API call. So with SubscribePro, it's essentially the customer coming back and placing those orders on your website over and over again. We're ordering as if we are the customer. So that has the benefit of kind of showing all orders, even recurring orders, on the order history. And a customer gets an order number for each of their orders, regardless of whether that was a recurring order or not. You do have the option to flag or not to flag those recurring orders so that they can be shown as this order was generated by the customer, this order was placed automatically. And one of the things that you want to always offer to your customer is the option for them to come in and manage that subscription themselves. That'll take a huge load off of your customer service team. If you're able to say to the customer, hey, if you've signed up for a subscription and you want to edit it in any way, you can go to the My Subscriptions page and handle that there under your account. With SubscribePro, that gives customers the option to manually change their next delivery date if they're going to be on vacation, change the number of items that they're receiving, or change the delivery frequency, skip, pause, or cancel, or they'd be able to kind of like update their delivery address and their payment information. And if they choose to do that, you can choose to update it for either the one item, or you can have it apply to all of the items that a customer has. And I guess the one final point that I wanted to bring up, and then I guess we'll jump over to some questions, is that there are a number of different ways that subscription programs can be implemented. And as I mentioned earlier, we've been really creative about ways that we've wanted to do that. So it's always important to not completely write off how a recurring revenue program could benefit you, because there's a bunch of different ways to implement them beyond just, hey, we sell a replenishable product like coffee and we want to make it available on regular delivery. We have worked with clients that I never would have expected would benefit from a subscription program. One of them is a saw blade company. They sell saw blades, and I wouldn't have thought about it, but if you're a contractor or a wood shop, you probably go through saw blades on a pretty regular basis because you're using them every single day. And there's plenty of other subscription programs aside from just the subscribe and save, right? The auto replenishment. So obviously that's the one that most people are familiar with. Hey, I want my dog food, or hey, I want my coffee, and I want you to send it to me every 2 weeks, every month. But there are also a ton of subscription programs that are a curated box or a monthly club. For example, most of you are probably familiar with Blue Apron, which you can sign up for, on a regular basis, set your delivery frequency, and they'll deliver a new box to you on that delivery frequency. We work with a number of wineries now that use Subscribe Pro to power their wine clubs. And so you can sign up to get a case or 2 cases or whatever of wine every month, every quarter. And you can even, if you want to get really customized with it, give customers the option to, hey, this is what's coming in next month's case. But if you want to swap in other bottles and other varieties that you enjoy, you can edit the box that will be coming to you next month. And that's certainly like a way to get creative with it. Or maybe a non-replenishable product that maybe people still enjoy, collectibles, things like that you want to do, like a box of the month or a figurine of the month. We've worked with folks to do that too. And the final style would be an access subscription. So a customer signs up for a recurring order, but it gets them something. So access to an online textbook, for example, or I've had clients say to us, word for word, we want to recreate Amazon Prime. So we want to charge people, $50, $60, $100, a year, or a few dollars a month. But that means that every time they order from our website, they get free shipping and they get a little bit of a discount. Customers are already familiar with that because most of us have used Amazon or are active Amazon Prime customers. And so as a result of that, might not be a bad idea to offer that to your customers. They might be interested in, oh yeah, like I order from this site a lot. It just makes sense to get me free shipping. I'm willing to be in that, particular, premier club or whatever you'd like to call it. So. Okay, so we've got a question here, and Gene, if it's all right with you, I'll jump over to look at some of the Q&A stuff now.
Yeah, jump over. I have a few others that might not be in that panel, but let's start there. That would be great.
Awesome. So is there a way to track subscription orders in GA? This has been a challenge our clients have faced in the past. So I'm not sure about the abbreviation for GA. That could be a couple things.
Google Analytics.
Google Analytics.
Oh,
yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
There are, so if you're, it depends on how you set up your subscription program with your e-commerce platform. Some folks, some subscription solutions like Subscribe Pro either have an integration with Google Analytics out of the box, or they might be willing to build one. The other thing is if you are using Google Analytics kind of based off of as one of the backend systems on your e-commerce platform, then there may not need to be an integration between your subscription solution and Google Analytics directly. For an example of that, I know it's not exactly the same thing, but we get asked a lot if we have integrations with ERPs. But most of the time, people have an integration between their ERP and their e-commerce platform already. And since, at least in Subscribe Pro's case, we're placing those recurring orders literally as if we were the customers themselves, then that means very little has to actually change in the systems that you're currently working with, right? So if you already have a system in place that is able to be integrated with any orders coming in on your website from when your customers place them, then a solution like Subscribe Pro that is basically just imitating that customer would need very little modification at all. And in fact, in most cases, wouldn't really need to have an integration directly with any of your backend systems.
Got it. I think that answers the question. I recognize this question too. The context here is, reporting in general, I think can be challenging when it comes to subscriptions, in general.
Yep.
The idea is, how can you attribute, where the origin of that first purchase was? It's almost attribution modeling at the end of the day. We worked with a company that had a subscription offering. They were a meal delivery program. Those are common. I know you brought up Beacon. And it was, for instance, trying to validate the performance of the paid SEM channel, right? And it might pick up the original purchase, but not the lifetime value of that client that, stays on the system for an average of 10 or 12 months or something like that, being able to attribute that back, those conversion values back to paid even after that click had occurred. So it sounds like there are.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you give me just a second. Yeah, absolutely. And if you give me just a second here, I'll pull up the Subscribe Pro platform just to take a second and share with you kind of how Subscribe Pro can handle that. So,
Rob, as you're doing that too, you mentioned Magento. What other platforms integrate by default with Subscribe Pro?
yeah, so Subscribe Pro has integrations with Magento 1 and Magento 2. That was kind of the original. Magento 1 was the original platform we integrated with. We're Magento partners, so we had a Magento 2 platform from the very beginning of Magento 2. And we integrate with all versions of Magento 1 and Magento 2. We've also got an integration with Zoe, kind of have fewer clients there. And we've got an integration with Salesforce Commerce Cloud as well. Just recently had our Site Genesis and SFRA cartridges recertified there. Having said that, I do know a bunch of folks that work with BigCommerce. I'm not intimately familiar with solutions on BigCommerce off the top of my head, but I do know a few more on Shopify. So if you've got a Shopify website, that is a direction that we're heading. But right now, I think most folks on Shopify that I know that are doing a subscription business are working with a company called Recharge. Recharge Payments
Yes.
is a good a Shopify provider there. And if you're on WooCommerce, I think that there are WordPress themselves has a solution that requires a bit more customization, but I know that there are some folks that I've chatted with on WooCommerce who are using the kind of the off-the-shelf extension on WooCommerce.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah. And just to chat, I think reporting is super important. So just to kind of take a second to chat about reporting, one of the things that you want to look for is if you're evaluating a subscription provider is kind of how they handle that. So here, kind of just at a high level is how Subscribe Pro does. You've got a dashboard here that's a great visual representation. And you can even kind of like, let's say by month, last year, that kind of shows you your overall number of orders, both active subscribers and active subscriptions, because again, one subscriber might have more than one. Shows you orders as well, tracks failed orders so that you can rectify those. Maybe a customer's credit card was declined or something like that. Provides overall subscription revenue. But then, you know, if you need to go a little bit deeper, always valuable to have. So I'll just pull up kind of a demo report here, daily subscription report. And you can filter by status, you know, active, paused, failed, that kind of thing, to and from on the next order date. You can, you know, hone down on, you know, a particular product SKU and then create a tabular report that is exportable to, you know, I need to add this to QuickBooks or Salesforce or something like that. You'd be able to export the file. The one other thing that we have, and I think I need to switch to a different demo account. But we can also build, you know, custom reports if it's a report that a merchant needs on a regular basis. So here's just an example of that we built for a demo on customer retention that will automatically pull all the data from our data warehouse and provide it on a regular basis. So anytime your brand needs to know what your customer retention looks like, you can come in here and say, oh, look, these are all the numbers that I'm looking for. A common one that we oftentimes build for merchants is a, you know, inventory estimate, right? So, hey, we know that you've got, you know, 100 orders this month of SKU ABC. And we can't account for maybe a bunch more people are going to come in and order SKU ABC, but we can tell you guaranteed that this month there are 100 subscriptions that are planned to go out with that SKU. So for merchants to kind of like plan their needed inventory, that's one that we build a whole lot as well. And all of these are available, you know, via our APIs. So if this is something that you know, want to work with us or work with a developer to get a little bit more creative, or you want to house this information somewhere else, you certainly can do that. Chat with our developers about that.
Cool. Appreciate
Excellent. So Rob, a couple other quick questions.
Sure.
One is, a notification system, and I don't know if this is built into Subscribe Pro or the
Mhm.
e-commerce platform. So let's say your scheduled deliveries in 7 days. Seems
Yep.
like it would make good sense for a notification, and also that seems like a great opportunity for upselling. You know, your order is coming out, being delivered in 7 days. You might also like to add this to your order type of thing. So I don't know how sophisticated the notification and upsell ops would be and what the workflow looks like on that is sort of the
Yeah,
question.
absolutely. So I can really only speak to the way that Subscribe Pro handles that. I'm not intimately familiar with how other subscription platforms handle it, but at least in our case, since our platform holds pretty much all of the information on a customer's subscription, we're really best suited to generate said emails. So in our case, you'd be able to kind of set up a number of email templates to go out on specific events. Thanking a customer for signing up for a subscription, or if they change their address, you might want to let them know that there was an update just to confirm it was really them that changed it. Letting a customer know that they've got an order upcoming. And we don't want customers to know that Subscribe Pro exists. So the way that we handle these is we work with the merchants to set them up with a DNS, which we route these emails through. So to the customer, they would see your logo on the header, and it would look like it was coming from like info@merchant or customer, support@merchant. And you can kind of customize the emails that we offer. These are all just HTML, so you can change the look and feel and the copy. And it's a good idea to give a link so that a customer can quickly click through and make any kind of updates that they want. Now, having said this, we do have a bunch of our clients that are just using kind of the standard emails that Subscribe Pro generates and sends for them. But we've also worked with folks who would prefer to use their existing ESP. They want all of their emails to go through, Klaviyo or Bronto or ListTrack. And we can also support that as well, as I would imagine, hopefully, that most of our competitors could. Simply via some webhooks that we have, that anytime an event happens that would trigger an email from Subscribe Pro, for example, customer has an upcoming order, we've got some hooks that would essentially trigger that email, but from the ESP, the email service provider. So if you're working with an ESP, your subscription platform should be able to somehow integrate with them to send emails through them. Just to kind of keep things consistent.
That's great. No, thank you for that. And just one final question on my side is, do you use Subscribe Pro in a B2B context very often? When you mentioned the saw blades, that would seem like a scenario where it could greatly expand the verticals that you'd even be looking at for subscription if it's in the B2B space.
Yeah, so we do. Admittedly, most of, if not, I'm going to say almost all of our clients are B2C clients. But having said that, we work with a number of brands, a smaller number, but there are a number of brands that have a B2B business. I don't think we have any that are exclusively B2B, but I know that some of our B2C brands, for example, like skincare and hair care products, oftentimes we'll have like a professional line. Or we work with a makeup company called Temtu. They're an airbrush makeup brand, and they sell both to to customers. They sell B2C, but they also work with makeup studios and salons to sell B2B as well. And so we support the subscription program both on their B2C site and their B2B site. The way that we manage that is they simply have one environment with Subscribe Pro that is their B2C and one environment with Subscribe Pro that is their B2B site, since they're technically two different websites that don't share consumer logins. You do have to have a special login for the B2B site. So yeah, subscriptions are certainly something that you can do with a B2B website as well. Oftentimes the challenge there is getting the volumes right. A lot of times in B2B, you might not have as consistent of a need for something as you do on the B2C side. But having said that, it's certainly something that's possible. And I know that I'm always looking to learn more about that. I always love chatting with people about kind of their replenishment challenges. So if you are a B2B business, even if we can't help you, I'd still love to pick your brain about your challenges on recurring orders and replenishment. So.
one type of business that comes to mind is something like a toner business for copiers, where you have to
Yep.
constantly replenish and you never want to run out. So that's an example, but it seems like there's some great opportunity there.
Yep.
I know we're just about out of time. Any final questions from our guests today? If not, Rob, I really want to thank you for joining, for all your insights around how to integrate subscriptions into your e-commerce business. And as I mentioned to everyone on the call, we recorded today's event. We'll share that via email. If you're not already a member, please join the CommerceBlend community and receive invitations for future events, access to other resources, and even discounts and promotions from some of the partners in the community. So on that note, thank you again, everyone. Thank you especially to you, Rob. Have a great weekend, and we will chat soon.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. Thanks, Gene.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye.
Go Ravens.
Thanks.